What is going on, Guardians, and welcome back to another Destiny gameplay video. Hey, in this video I'm going to be giving you guys some of my best tips on how to appropriately and effectively use throwing knives on the Hunter Gunslinger subclass. Now, I absolutely love throwing knives. Love them, love them, love them. So much fun to use, so rewarding when you get kills with them, and they're actually incredibly useful in terms of your equipment. So yeah, so let's start out. Just first and foremost, there's really two main approaches to using throwing knives. There's two main approaches. The first of which is using them as sort of emergency equipment. This works best with pulse rifles, scout rifles, and auto rifles. So if you're using a pulse, scout, or auto, you're probably going to want to use throwing knives as sort of this secondary emergency equipment where you're getting shots on somebody, they start to close that gap, and you find you need to do a lot of damage in a short amount of time. So it's great to finish people off in those sort of defensive scenarios. So that's approach number one. And anytime usually when I'm using a pulse rifle, I don't really use a lot of ARs these days, or scouts, to be honest. But I use a lot of pulse rifles, and so generally I'll use that approach, that defensive approach, when I'm using a pulse rifle. Now, the other approach is a hyper-aggressive, premeditated approach to using throwing knives. That's what you're going to see in this video here. It's my favorite way to use throwing knives, and it works best in conjunction with hand cannons, because hand cannons have great in-air accuracy, which I'll get to in a moment, and they do a lot of damage in a single shot, so you can go one shot throwing knife to finish them off. So that's what I prefer to do, is the hyper-aggressive, premeditated approach to using throwing knives, and hopefully you enjoyed that gameplay. So rule number one is try to make high approaches. So when you make high approaches, here's the thing about a high approach, is what you're doing when you make a high approach is you're upping that percentage of the hitbox that is a precision zone, okay? If you're looking head on at the person, you've got a big hitbox, and only this tiny spot on the top of them is precision. But if you approach from a high approach, then the hitbox for the head takes up more of the space. The hittable space. Does that make sense? I mean, this isn't a complicated idea. I guess it's just complicated to explain. But when you approach from the top, the head actually takes up a bigger space of the hitbox than it does if you're looking head on at them. So you definitely want to try and make high approaches if you can. You can still hit those precision hits definitely from ground level. You see that right here. You just have to make sure you aim high. They do arc down after a while, so try and aim high. Now, rule number two, this is really, really, really important for this approach to using throwing knives. Really, really important. Rule number two is shoot, throw, shoot. Okay? You want to fire, throw the knife, and if it doesn't finish them off, you want to follow it up with follow-up shots. So shoot, throw, shoot. You do not want to throw first and shoot second. That is bad. That's a no-no. That's a big mistake when it comes to using throwing knives. If you can help it, you never want to lead with the throwing knife. Here is why. If you shoot first and then throw the throwing knife, you can go bop bop. You can shoot, throw. There's no cooldown, there's no delay. You can instantly throw a throwing knife as soon as you get your shot off with your primary. So shoot, throw. Okay? If you throw first, this is not as good, because if you throw first, there's a recovery time in the amount of time it takes you to re-equip and ADS or whatever with your weapon. There's a longer amount of time in between when you throw and when you can fire than there is between when you can fire and throw, right? So in comparison, it's the difference between going bop bop and going bop bop, right? and fractions of a second are really important. So now, if you shoot, throw, shoot, doesn't mean you're always going to land that first shot. You may have to follow it up with shots afterwards. That's certainly plausible, certainly possible. But you definitely want to shoot first, throw second. That's a huge, huge part of using throwing knives effectively. Now, I prefer to use Gambler's Dagger and double knives because I do that hyper-aggressive, premeditated approach to using throwing knives. So it works better that way. If you're using a pulse rifle or scout rifle or AR and you're using that other approach I talked about, the more defensive emergency equipment approach, then Burning Blade is probably your better bet. But if you're using them hyper aggressively like I like to, then you can go into a firefight with one throwing knife cooled down and potentially throw three. You know what I mean? And that happens. I mean, that happens from time to time. So when you have that automatic cooldown where you get a precision hit with a throwing knife, if you're going shoot throw, then you can go body shot throwing knife to the head with a higher impact hand cannon, reset the cooldown, have one person dead. You can then go to person number 2 and go shoot throw again, cool down a third one, and then use it in your third engagement. So definitely want to use that approach. If you're doing the aggressive approach, then definitely having the cooldown on precision hit, big deal. Rule number 3, save it for last against supers and shielded opponents because of that downtime in between after you throw and when you can shoot. So if you got a charging super, do as much damage as possible and wait till the last second to throw the knife so that you can do as much DPS in a little amount of time as possible. And the last thing I would say is use it. Don't forget it's there. Don't use it as an afterthought. Definitely be cognizant of your cooldowns. Get aggressive with them. Definitely want to take advantage of them because they are phenomenal pieces of equipment. Thanks for watching the video, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed the gameplay. Hopefully the tips are helpful for you. I look forward to catching you in the Crucible.